Hello, in this video we will learn how to write Python programs to read and write CSV files. So the first question is, what is CSV file or what is the full form of CSV? CSV stands for comma separated values and it is a text file only that uses a comma to separate or delimit values. Each line is one record and each of the comma separated value is one field. You can also choose a different delimiter character such as colon, semicolon, bar or tab 2. A CSV file typically stores tabular data such as spreadsheet or database, so typically each line has same number of fields. So why or when do we use CSV file format? CSV is typically used to transfer data between proprietary format, let's say from one database if we want to export data to Excel, or transfer large data between programs. So what are the advantages of CSV file format? CSV is human readable, so easy to edit manually. It is easy to implement and can be processed by multiple applications. It is fast and small in size than binary files. However, there are a few disadvantages of CSV file as well. It can handle only text data. It cannot distinguish between text and numeric. There is poor support of special characters and control characters. It doesn't work so effectively with SQL too. So which module is used to work with CSV files? To read and write in CSV file, we need to import CSV module. So when it is at a basic level text file only, why do we need to use CSV module? This is because if you manually try to read or write a line with delimiter, it would be really tedious. What we do is still open our file using open command in read, write or append mode as we need. CSV module has a CSV reader function to which you can pass the file handle and the delimiter used. It returns a reader object which you can use to iterate over each line or record. It automatically splits each line and returns all fields separated as individual item in a list. You can then directly use indexing to access individual elements of the list. Similarly, when we are writing to the file, we do not need to handle putting in delimiters every time. It has a writer function to which we pass the file handle and the delimiter we want to use. It returns a writer object which has two functions, write row and write rows. Write row function takes in a sequence like a list and writes a single row. It automatically formats it according to delimiter which was defined in the writer function. The write rows function takes in a sequence and it can write multiple rows to the writer file object. So the typical program you are asked would be to either write or append, read or search, or do read plus write kind of programs. Example of write programs are like write or append to a CSV file data such as username, mobile number or student name and roll number where data is taken in from the user. The read or search program could be simple programs like display all data of a file or display only specific columns or display rows based upon some condition. The read plus write kind of programs require you to read from one file and then write or append to another file, either some specific columns or only some specific rows. Let's look at some programs. First program is a simple write program. Write a program to write customer code, customer name and amount in file cust.csv. The final file should look like this. If you look at the expected program, key point to note over here is it has 3 rows and each row has 3 fields. The first row is the header row. The separator used here is semicolon. Here we will first start the program by importing CSV module. Now we have to open the file cust.csv in write mode. It will return to us the file handle. Next we will use csv.writer function and pass the file handle and the delimiter expected, which is semicolon. Now we will use the writer object returned by this function to write all rows. As we know, this writer object has two functions, write row, which can take in a list as each row, and write rows, which can take in a list of list. Since there are only 3 lines, I am using write row and passing first a list of expected header. Then I am calling write row again and passing a list which contains the code, name and amount for the first person, and the same way the next row for the second person. Last, we should not forget to close the file we have opened to write. This is our program. Now when you run this, you will see that in Windows there is an extra blank line in between. Why is this here and how do we correct this? This is happening because CSV writes /r/n as terminator, which in Windows gets translated as /rn. To fix this, in open command, we have to give new line is equal to blank, which overrides the new as empty. Now the same program could be given to you to append 2 rows to an existing file. Here we will just change the mode to append and remove the header row as it already exists in the file. This program will append 2 rows in the file. Now this is a simple program. Most of the times you would be asked a program where you have to write multiple rows, maybe by taking in input from the user. Like write a program to take in roll number, name and marks of student from the user and write to file student.csv. Here you will import the CSV file and then open the file in write mode and with new line as blank. Next we will pass the file handle to CSV writer function along with the delimiter. It will return writer object, which we will use to call write row function to pass a list which contains the header information or the first row of the file. Next we will set up a while loop to take in the input from the user. The first step we will do is to take in an option from the user, 1 to add and 0 to exit. If user enters 1, then we will take in roll number, name and marks from the user. We will create a list for a single row record, which we will pass to write row function. Next we will handle if option is equal to 0. Here if the user enters option 0, then we will do break and this will get you out of the loop. This while and then if loop is standard loop, which we will use in all our option kind of programs. Once we are out from the while loop, we will close the file. If you run this program and enter couple of rows, the output would look like this. Now they could ask you the same program slightly differently where you are asked to append to an existing file. So what we will do is, we will just change the mode to append and comment the header row as it already exists in the file. This program will append to an existing file. If you run this and add rows to the previous file, you will get an output like this. This program is your basic template for any file write append kind of program. You could be given any different type of data and asked to write. You just need to change the file name, mode, delimiter, the header row, input field and list to be passed. Like I might say open xyz.file and write book number, book name and number of pages with separator as tab. I will just change the file name, mode to W, change the separator to tab, write the header as per the question and change the input fields and list and my new program is ready. Next set of programs are read or search kind of programs. We will start with the simple program where you have to read or display all the contents of file 1.txt which has comma as separator. We first import CSV module. We open the file given the read mode here and pass the file handle to CSV reader function along with the delimiter option. It returns to us the reader object. Now this reader object can be used to read data row by row, and it automatically handles the separator and gives us the item separated as list. You can set up a for loop to iterate over this reader object, and it returns data row by row which you can print. Last, we will not forget to close the file. This program will print the entire content of the file. If you see the output, each row is returned as a list and each individual field is returned as a string in the list. Do note that even numbers are converted to string. So if you need to do any number processing later on, you will have to convert it back to int or float. Now you will use this program as your basic file read template and just make some edits to this program based upon the question asked. What you might be asked is to do selective read, means display only specific rows or column. Let's first see how you will display only specific columns. Like if the program was to read from a file and display only roll number and student name. Now you already know that this program gives you entire row as a list. If you want to print only specific columns, you just have to use list indexing. The program to read all rows remain the same, but now instead of printing complete row, you will print only row 0 and row 1. Now if you run this and see, it will print only roll number and name column. Likewise, if the program was to display only roll number and marks, you will need to just change the print statement only to row 0 and row 2 and you will get the answer. Now that we have seen how to handle selective columns, let's look at how you will manage selective rows. Let's take another example. In this program, a file customer.csv contains city, customer name and amount. Search and print all rows where city is Delhi. Sample customer.csv is shown. If you see the question, search actually means selecting and printing specific rows as per the condition given. Here we will take our template read program which we use to print all rows. We will change the file name first. If I run this, it will print all rows. But we want to print row only with city Delhi. In such programs, we will add a if condition before print to check if city is Delhi. Now which field or column in the row we need to check? In the row, city is in which column or in the list returned to us, at what index is the city? It is the first column which is at index 0. So we will write our if condition as if row 0 equal to Delhi. Then only print the row. Here also remember, we should always do lower so that we do not have any issues due to improper case comparison. Now in all such questions, only the search condition will change. What if it is print where customer name has Anil? Now again the entire program remains the same and only your if condition will change. You will just say if Anil in row 1. Or the program could be to both select specific rows plus specific columns like print customer name, amount for all sales more than 15,000. Now let's again take our basic program, handle specific columns first. We have to print only customer name and amount. They are at index 1 and 2, So we will just change our print statement. Let's run it and see. Yes, it is printing columns correctly. Now we need to handle specific rows. We need only rows where sales is greater than 15,000. We know the amount is at index 2. So we can just write our if condition to row 2 greater than 15,000. What data type is row 2? It is a string. Can we do int compared with string? The answer is no. So important point here is that if there is any number field to be used, you should convert it back to number by using int or float. We will convert it into int and then write condition to check for greater than 15,000. There is still one more error in this program. While this int conversion will work on all numbers, it will not work on this header row. This program will give you an error as it will read first line and try to convert amount to int. You need to ignore the header line or first row which is there in the beginning of the file. To fix this, before we enter the loop, we will call next f to skip the first row. This is our final program, and if we run it, it will print customer name and amount for all sales greater than 15,000. Next set of programs are read plus write programs. Here you are asked to read from one file and then write or append to another file. The read could be selective read of specific rows or columns. Let's start with a simple program where you have to write a program to copy the data from data.csv to new.csv, and the separator is comma in both the files. These kind of programs are just merging of read and write template you have just learned. Let's learn how to merge them. We will first import the CSV file. Then we will open the first file in read mode and second file in write mode. Next we will call the CSV reader and writer function to get the respective reader and writer object. Make sure you pass the correct file handles here. Next you will write the standard for loop to read from the reader object. Inside the loop, instead of print, you will just write the row to the second file. Once you are out of the loop, you will close both the files. This file will read row by row from first file and then just copy all rows to the second file. If you run this program, you will see an output like this. Now this is your standard template for read plus write kind of programs. We will just see how we will handle different variations of questions by just making some change in this program. Suppose the question was that file data.csv has come from branch in Pune and it needs to be added to file new.csv which has data for all branches. Now here the data is not to be written, it is supposed to be appended. So only change we need to do is change the mode to append. This will append the file you read to the second file. Now the question could be that the file data.csv has come in with separator colon, but your system can read only semicolon. Write a program to convert to new.csv file. Here you have to open a file with some separator and change it. So the only change you need in this is to change the separator in csv.writer function. The program could be also to write some selective rows or columns to the new file. Let's practice it with a different kind of question. In these kind of questions, the programs would be given to you and you have to just fill in the blanks. Like Ronit has a CSV file marks.csv which has name, class and marks separated by comma. He is writing a Python program to copy only the name and class to another CSV file class.csv. He has written the following code. As a programmer, help him to successfully execute the task. So as you see, the program is given and a set of questions are asked on it. The first question is, in which mode should Ronit open the file to make a new file? Here we know the question is asking us to write to a new file and not append, so we will open the file in write mode. The next question is, which Python keyword should be used to manage the file stream? Here the Python keyword which is being used is with. With helps to manage file resources and you do not need to remember to close the file in the end. Next question is to fill in the blank in line 3 to read the data from a CSV file. Here we know to read the file, we use the reader function. The next question is to fill in the blank to write name into marks.csv. We have learned earlier that to print specific columns, we use indexing. So here we will do that and use row 0 to write the name, and for the next question, which is to write the class, we will use row 1. This completes the program. Let's see another question like this, where you have to write selective rows. Like Ronit has a CSV file marks.csv which has name, class and marks separated by comma. He is writing a Python program to copy only rows of students of class 2 to another CSV file class.csv. He has written the following code. As a programmer, help him to successfully execute the task. Here also, the program is given to you and some set questions are asked. The first question is, while opening the file, what needed to be added to suppress extra end of line during writing? Here when we open the file to write, we use new line is equal to blank to suppress the new line. Next question is, which CSV function is used to return an object to be used for writing into a file? Here the answer is that we use CSV writer function to get the writer object to write to the file. The next question is to fill in the blank with the name of the file handle to be used. So in this, we use the same file handle which is passed in the reader function. So we know we need to put in CSV file handle over here. The next question is to fill in the blank to select the right field which needs to be compared with 2. Here we have to remember the index starts from 0 and class is at index 1 of the row. So we will put in row 1. In the last question, we have to fill in the blank with correct function to write in CSV file. Here we know we are writing row by row, so we will use the write row function over here. This completes our program. In our next video, we are going to practice how to handle binary files using pickle module in Python. Thank you and goodbye.